They're going to start the drumming ceremony, and they're going to get us up to the first floor. We're going to follow them up this way. I do want to acknowledge, and we'll say a bit more, but briefly want to acknowledge our Member of Provincial Parliament, Mr. Michael Tabolo. He's from the riding of Woodbridge Vaughan. Thank you for being here. He's the Associate Minister of Mental Health, so we do appreciate your presence here today to see some of the grassroots movements that are happening in the community. Thank you so much for your presence. I also would like to acknowledge Member of Provincial Parliament, Mr. Vijay Salam. Thank you for being here. He is absolutely. He is the parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Infrastructure and a member of the Tamil community. And we're very happy to have you here today. So we'll be making our way upstairs shortly. Thank you. To say, you know what, this is what we tried. You know, he's an active leader in the community. He's served the community for many, many years. And this is what worked, and this is what didn't. So you guys are trying to tackle something that others have tried. So here's a wisdom. Here's a word of advice. So that's really what impressed us. For him to take the time out to say, here's my experience. And that is really the concept of Sankofa. These are old concepts, but very, very applicable even today. Now, before I invite Minister Tabol to come up here and present an award to Dr. Hiley, I want to say a little bit about Dr. Hiley's background, unless, Minister, you're okay, good. So, most of Dr. Hiley's career was spent as an epidemiologist. He had clinical training back home. He was chief medical administrator as well as the chief medical officer of health in Jimma back home. But when he came here, he attended McGill University and obtained his PhD in epidemiology. That was his passion. That's how he felt he could contribute to change in society, change policy. He also received a Master of Public Health from Tulane University in the US, and originally graduated from Haile Selassie University in Ethiopia in clinical medicine. Most of his latter career was spent at Center for Addiction and Mental Health, which is right here in Toronto. He's a leader in the community-based mental health research and social and cultural determinants of mental health, with a focus on utilization of health services by Canadian immigrants. His work, I would consider it to be seminal. It really captured what it is that new immigrants to Canada face. He actually put numbers on it. He drew the correlations that are needed for people to make policy changes. Now, this is the kind of foundation that we're hoping to capitalize on as we go forward. Now, I want to say thank you to Dr. Hiley for your exemplary work and leadership. I now call upon His Honourable Member of Parliament, Mr. Michael Tabol, to present the award.
Thank you, Dr. Salam. It is a pleasure and an honor for me to be here this afternoon. I have to say, though, that I may have to speak to Dr. Samir afterwards. He might have to give me a little bit of help because I discovered something else today that I didn't know. So when I was younger, I discovered that the Italians, my background is Italian, so my parents were Italian and I was born in Canada. But I discovered that spaghetti, noodles, were not Italian, that we took them from the Chinese. I discovered that pizza is not Italian, we took it from the Jews. And tomatoes, of course, I thought tomato sauce, tomato paste, something that's central to our cuisine. It was something that was Italian. Well, I found out that Columbus brought the seeds back from the indigenous people in North America, and Central America, and South America. Today, I found out that coffee is not Italian. And it comes from cafe, which is Ethiopia. So I'm having an identity crisis right now because I really don't know what I am anymore. I'm really honored to be here today, and I was before coming to politics, I ran an addiction, a therapeutic community for men with addictions, and part of the work that I also did, I practiced law, but one of the things I discovered early on is that the only way to help someone is to understand his culture, his or her culture. The only way we're going to have an impactful therapeutic relationship, an alliance with the person, is to understand where they come from, who they are. And one of the things that you discover very quickly is that if you're not from the Black community, trying to build that therapeutic alliance is very difficult. And that's true, not just for the Black community, but for the South Asian community and many other communities. And the other thing that shocked me, because as part of my career, part of my learning, I'm doing my doctorate in clinical psychology right now as we speak. And one of the things that you discover as well is that in giving therapy, if you don't understand the culture, if you don't understand the background, you're not going to be able to help that individual. And people aren't the same. It doesn't matter where you come from in the world. We are all one people. But our cultures are different, and they've influenced us differently. So your community comes from a very collectivist style worldview. That's the same for the Italians, which means it's not about me, it's about my family. It's not about me and my family, it's about our community. And so it's very difficult to give people the supports they need when you don't understand those concepts. And of course, where was psychology discovered? Where was it developed? Where did it grow? And where most of the studies come from in the past? The United States, Canada, and England, which are individualist societies, which means it's centered on the person. So we're starting with a premise that's already wrong when we're dealing with collectivist societies. So to hear that there's a psychiatrist that's coming forward, to hear Dr. Fenta, the work that you're doing, and I have to spend more time talking to you because your work is critical to the work that I'm trying to do. As the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, what I look to do is to create what are called continuums of care. What that means is that I need to look for places where we can get people engaged. So a low barrier mechanism that allows us to allow people to enter into and seek help when they need it. And of course, if you come from a community and you come to a guy that looks like me, and I'm not from your community, it's going to be very hard to build that bridge. So organizations like the one that we're here today to celebrate, and the individual that we're here to celebrate, are making a tremendous impact on helping build a continuum of care that's focused on the individual, that's client-centered, not one-size-fits-all, because we all know one-size-fits-all does not work, especially when it comes to people's mental health and addictions. The community, like all communities, has issues. And I'm very proud to be here to speak to you today and hear the things that are happening, because I know that this is a step forward in the right direction. We have built the Roadmap to Wellness, which is a document that I worked on in 2019. It was published 2020, March 4th, and I was at a psychiatric, one of our hospitals, announcing it exactly today in 2020. And of course, you know what's happened today, right? Yes. We declared COVID-19 a pandemic. And the announcement on the day 2 weeks before, no one was really talking about mental health, because again, we have a tendency, because of the collectivist worldview that most of us have, and the stigma that's created as a result of that, to not want to talk about mental health. And so of course, all the questions that day were, is COVID really going to be a problem? Are we really going to have to close everything down? How are you going to, so all the questions related to that, and of course I'm standing there, like, is anyone going to ask me a question about mental health? Because again, from my point of view, and what you need to all understand, is when you talk about mental health, you cannot have health, without mental health. So stop and think about that for a moment. How many people have mental health issues that go undiagnosed or that become somatic expressions, so headaches, stomach aches, the inability to get out of bed? A lot of those things have to do with mental health, and if they're not addressed, they continue on and they have impacts on our physical health. And you've all heard stories about eating disorders, and I don't know how prevalent they are in your community, but I can tell you that a week doesn't go by that I don't hear about a young woman, usually it's girls, that has an eating disorders, but that's changing too because we're starting to see men now, or young boys. It doesn't happen, a week doesn't go by that I don't hear about someone contemplating suicide. So our society is becoming much more complex. I have to say social media has played a huge part in creating some of these problems. And to the parents, be very, very careful with your children and when they're using social media. We're now at the point that 1/3 of the kids are spending 5 hours a day on social media. Now stop and think about that for a second. If they're in school for 5 to 6 hours and they're spending 5 hours on social media, when are they taking the time to do the things like what I saw today, learning how to spin cotton or wool, I'm not sure what it was, but learning tradition, listening to traditional music, speaking the traditional language. And I have to say that as part of the work that I did before coming to politics, I would always say that if you want your community to survive, if you want to keep alive the spirit of your community and instill it in your children, live it. Live it. Like today, have your kids participate. If you want to make sure that they don't have a void in their lives, make sure you fill it with positive things, because positive things, as much as they'll complain about them, and they're hard, remember what happens. If you create a void, something's going to fill it. And what usually fills those voids are not good things, they're bad things. So keep them busy, because I'll tell you, these traditions that you have, that you're sharing with your children today, are the traditions that I shared, even though we didn't get the raw materials from Italy. But, making tomato sauce, being part of the process that we use, we make a lot of different types of products that are cured. Doing those types of things, it's not about the process of what you're doing, it's the time that you're spending with your kids. It's the time that you're sharing knowledge. Those are the things that will build the strength and resiliency that the kids need, that when they're confronted with something negative, they'll have something to fall back on. And that's extremely important. And I think it's appropriate that today we're honoring someone who's dedicated his life to these very things and the importance of culture and tradition. And I'm so happy to be here on behalf of the province of Ontario, on behalf of the Premier of the province of Ontario, on behalf of our entire caucus, to say thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for bringing forward the important work that you're doing to help your community, because healing comes from inside, but you need guide. You need guidance. You need to have the ability to have people around you that can support you. So thank you again for what you do for the community, for continuing to be an advocate, inspiring new generations. I'm so happy to hear that we have a psychologist, that we have a psychiatrist in training. These are things that make me really happy and make me feel that yes, we have a future to help everyone in a focused way that's culturally safe and appropriate for the culture that they come from. So again, thank you very much. If you would like to come up.
All the community members gathered around us, especially in traditional clothes, and trying to emulate the tradition of how the coffee was originated, and the smell, ambient and everything. I felt like this is how a community should gather to celebrate someone who has done a lot. So I'm so happy that I got to attend. And number two, I saw a lot of young folks in this room. It's so great to see that on a weekend, parents took their time to bring their kids to the events like this, because Minister Tibolo touched this, it is so important to keep our kids engaged. Look, I'm so honored to serve along with Minister Tibolo and so many various ministers and cabinet ministers and caucus members, because I came to Canada at the age of 14. I did multiple part-time jobs from like Tim Hortons to factories to dishwashing. So now I'm so honored to serve in the public office as MPP and get to work with community leaders like Liban and do what we can do best in our time to do to bring some good projects to where I represent in Scarborough. So for example, 3 or 4 years ago, Minister Tibolo came down to Scarborough, met with Liban, and we had a round table to address mental health issues and how we can tackle mental health issue in a culturally sensitive way, and that's a term I learned from him as well. So it's good to see that it's everything coming back to cycle, where Liban invited Minister Tibolo and myself for ETHIOPIAN and Eritrean communities event to celebrate someone who has done a lot. Before I finish, I just want to say one thing to all the young folks here. Right now in Scarborough, we are building the first ever medical school after like years. The last time Toronto built a medical school was in 1841. So after 1841 in Canada, in Toronto, we are building a medical school is because I got the opportunity to serve. So my message for all the young folks here, if I can come to Canada and become an MPP, one of you can become the next Prime Minister of Canada.
That is, I'll second that, and that is an important message to all the volunteers, all of you guys that have been helping today, that have been helping with volunteering and supporting community events. This is a message for you, and it doesn't get any more real than Mr. Tanagi Salam standing here in front of you, telling you his stories. You don't need to be an immigrant, but if you're born here, you have aspirations. This is a beautiful country. You have opportunities. You have a community that believes in you. So go for it. Don't hold back. Dr. Heidi, I'm going to call on you just in a little bit. We're okay? Okay. So we have 2 more people that are going to say a few words about Dr. Heidi, but we're going to have you come and get the award at this point. Let's give it up to Dr. Heidi.
Certificate, I'm also presenting you with something called a challenge coin. I'm not sure if you all know what that is, but a challenge coin is a tradition that goes back to the ancient Romans. It's a military tradition, and what it does is that it identifies people that are like, they come from the same group, they come from the same family, and this particular coin is my challenge coin as a Minister of Mental Health and Addictions. I don't give these to anyone, I give them to very special people that earn them. This coin says on it, in mente sana, in corporum sanum. So a sound mind needs a sound body, a sound body needs a sound mind. So I'm going to present you with a certificate and with a challenge coin.
So this is the award that's been especially made for Dr. Haile. You can open it, yes?
This award is actually on behalf of Ethio Can Bridge the Gap and Taibu Community Health Center. So thank you, Taibu.
At this point, I would like to invite
ስሜ ኢሳያስ ግዴ መለስ ይባላል። በኢትዮጵያ በነበርኩበት ጊዜ የስነ ልቦና ባለሙያ ነኝ። እንግዲህ ካውንስሊንግ ሰርቪስ እና ጋይዳንስ ኤንድ ካውንስሊንግ ሰርቪስ ላይ ላለፉት 7-8 ዓመታት ሰርቻለሁ። አሁን ካናዳ ሙቭ አድርጌ ቶሮንቶ እኖራለሁ። የሜንታል ሄልዝ ኢሹ ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ከባድም ነው ከባድም አይደለም። ከባድ ነው የምልበት ምክንያት ብዙ ሰዎች ሜንታል ሄልዝ እንደ በሽታ አይወሰድም፣ ግን ሜንታል ሄልዝ እንደ ማንኛውም የሰውነታችን ክፍል ጭንቅላታችን ይታመማል። በተለያዩ ምክንያቶች እንደ ማንኛውም ሰውነት ክፍል ብዙ ሶርሶች ይኖሩታል አይደል? ሰውነት ክፍላችን ሊያሳምሙ የሚችሉ ነገሮች አእምሯችንም በተለያዩ ምክንያቶች ሊታወቅ ይችላል። አይደር በተፈጥሮ ሊሆን ይችላል፣ በአካባቢ ሊሆን ይችላል፣ ወይም ከጊዜ በመጣ ኔጌቲቭ ቶት ምክንያት አእምሯችን ሊታመም ይችላል። እንደ ማንኛውም የሰውነት ክፍል ደግሞ እንደሚታመመው መፍትሄም አለው፣ ሕክምና አለው። ተገቢውን ሕክምና ከወሰድና ካመንበት የአእምሮ በሽታ ወይም ሜንታል ሄልዝ በጊዜ ሂደት ሊድን የሚችል ነው። ሙሉ በሙሉ ሊድን የሚችል በሽታ አለ፣ ሙሉ በሙሉ ደግሞ ላይድን የሚችልና ግን እያስታመምን ላይፍ ሎንግ ትሪትመንት እየሰጠ ነው ሊቀጥሉ የሚችሉ በሽታዎችም አሉ። ግን መጀመሪያ ትልቁ ፖይንት አእምሮ በሽታ እንደ ማንኛውም የሰውነት ክፍል በሽታ ነው ብሎ መቀበሉ ላይ ነው። የካናዳውን እንግዲህ ኤክስፒሪየንስ ብዙ አላውቀውም። ይሄ አመለካከት እንግዲህ አገር ቤትን በሰፊው ያለ ነው፣ ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥም በሰፊው ያለ ነው። እንደ ባለሙያ ጸበሉን አልቃወምም፣ በጣም ጥሩ ነገር ነው። ግን መድኃኒት መታዘዝ ካለበትና በሐኪም የታዘዘ መድኃኒት ካለ መውሰዱ አማራጭ የሌለው ነው። ቢካዝ መድኃኒት ጀምሮ ማቋረጡ የበለጠ በሽታውን ሊያባብሰው ይችላል። ከናካቴው ለመውሰዱም እንደዛው አድርጎ ምናልባት በቀላሉ ሊድኑ የሚችሉ የአእምሮ ህመሞች በጣም ተባብሰው ወደማይኖሩበት ደረጃ ላይ ሊደርስ ስለሚችል ከሐኪም ጋር በመነጋገር መድኃኒቶች መቋረጥ የለባቸው፣ መጀመርም ካለባቸው መጀመር አለባቸው። እንደ ስነ ባለሙያ ይሄን እመክራለሁ። ከኢትዮጵያ መጥቶ ወደ ካናዳ ኑሮ መጀመር ቀላል አይደለም። ቢካዝ የተለየ ኢንቫይሮንመንት፣ የተለየ አየር፣ የተለየ ካልቸር፣ የተለየ ኑሮ ይዘቤ ነው የሚጠብቃቸው። ስለዚህ ከናቹራል ሀቢታታቸው ተነቅለው ስለሚመጡ እዚህ ያለውን ነገር ሶሻላይዝ አድርገው አዳፕት አድርገው እስኪለምዱ ድረስ ፕሮሰስ አለው። ስለዚህ ካልቸራል ሾኩ፣ ሰፓሬሽን አንዛይቲ፣ የተለያዩ አይነት ችግሮች ይገጥሟቸዋል እና ከኢትዮጵያ መጥተው ካናዳ ውስጥ ሜንታል ሄልዝ ኢሹ ኤክስፒሪየንስ ቢያደርጉ የተለመደ ሊሆን ይችላል፣ ግን መፍትሄ አለው። ኮሚኒቲው በበለጠ ሜንታል ሄልዝ ኢሹ ላይ አዌርነስን ፈጥሮ ከኮሚኒቲው ጋር በመስራት ነገሮችን ሰፕረስ ማድረግ ይቻላል ተብሎ ብዬ ገምታለሁ። የመጀመሪያው ምክሬ ትክክለኛውን ኢንፎርሜሽን ይዘው ይምጡ። they should do their research። ካናዳ ምንድነው፣ ባህሉ ምን ይመስላል፣ አየሩ ምን ይመስላል፣ የስራ እድሎች ምን ይመስላሉ፣ እውነታውን አውቀው መጣት ጥሩ ነው። ከዛ የሚመጡ ብዙ ወገኖቻችን ኤክስፔክቴሽኑ የካናዳ ኤክስፔክቴሽን የተሳሳተና በጣም ኤግዛጀሬትድ የሆነ ላይፍ ስታይል እንደሚጠብቃቸው አምነው ይመጣሉ። ወይራድ ሪያሊቲው እውነት አይደለም። እዚህ መስራት አለባቸው፣ ስትራግል ማድረግ አለባቸው። አዲስ ኢንቫይሮንመንት ውስጥ ነው የሚገቡት። ስለዚህ the gap between the expectation reality ብዙ ጊዜ ትክክል አይመጣም። እሱ ነው ወደ ሜንታል ሄልዝ ኢሹ አንድ ኢሹ ሆኖ ማየው እሱ ነው። ስለዚህ ከእውነታው ጋር ራሳቸውን አስታርቀው እውነተኛውን ኢንፎርሜሽን ይዘ ክሊክ አዌ አሁን ከምንም ኢንተርኔት ላይ ከሰውም ሊወስዱ ይችላሉ። እሱን አውቀው የካናዳ ምንድነው፣ የኑሮ ስታይሉ ምን ይመስላል፣ እንዳልኩ ወይዘርም ትልቅ ኢምፓክት ስላለው ባህሪ ላይ እሱን አውቆ መምጣቱ ተዘጋጅቶ መምጣቱ ትልቅ ነገር ይመስለኛል።
ሰላም፣ ፋሲካ ገብረ ጻዲቅ ወለሰንበት እባላለሁ። ቶሮንቶ ከተማ ነዋሪ ነኝ። ዛሬ እዚህ የመጣሁት በዚህ ሳምንት የጥቁሮች የአእምሮ በሽተኞች ወይም የብላክ ሜንታል ሄልዝ ዊክ ተብሎ ይከበራል እና ይህንን በተመለከተ ጸደይና ባልደረቦቿ ያዘጋጁት ዝግጅት ነበር እዚህ 192 በዳይና አቬኑ ላይ እና እዛ ዝግጅት ላይ ለመካፈል ነው። እውነት ነው፣ የምናየው ነገር ነው። በየጎረቤት ትምህርት ቤት፣ ስራ ቦታ፣ ሁሉም ቦታ ላይ መታየው ነው። ሰዎች በእንደዚህ አይነት በአካባቢያችን ባሉት በኑሮ ውድነት ሊሆን ይችላል፣ ከሀገር ተሰዶ በመምጣት በባይተዋርነት ሊሆን ይችላል፣ የተለያዩ ሱሶች ውስጥ በመግባት በዛ ተጠቂ ሆነው ሊሆን ይችላል፣ ቤተሰብ ውስጥ ባለ ችግር በዛ የተነሳ የአእምሮ ህመም ውስጥ ገብተው ሊሆን ይችላል፣ በዘር የሚተላለፍ ሊሆን ይችላል እና ግን ችግሩ ምንድነው? አገራችን የምናውቀው የአእምሮ ህመም ማለት ያው ድንጋይ ይዞ ሜዳ ላይ የሮጠ ሰው የሚደበድብ ወይ እንደዛ አይነት ተብሎ ስለሚታሰብ የአእምሮ ህመምተኛ ነው ለመባል ብዙ ሰው እንዲነገርበትም እንዲሰማም አይፈልግም። የቤተሰብም አካል የሆነ ሰው ቤተሰብ ውስጥ እንዲህ አይነት ችግር አለ ብሎ ለመናገር አይፈልግም። ልጆቻችንም ችግር ላይ ባሉ ሰዓት እኛም ያንን ነገር ዲናይ እናረጋለን። ራሱ ጉዳዩ ያለበትን ባለቤቱም ሁሉ ጊዜ ነገሩን ወደ ሌላ ሰው ላይ ፖይንት ማድረግ ነው እንጂ እኔ ላይ ምን ችግር አለኝ ብለን ራሳችንን ሁሉ አንመረምርምና ቶሎ መፍትሄ ልናገኝ የምንችልለት ጉዳይ ወደ ሕክምናና ወደሚያስፈልጉ ባለሙያዎች ሳንደርስ ስር ሰዶ አስከፊ የሆነ ሁኔታ ላይ ይደርሳል። ሰዎች ራሳቸውን እስከ ማጥፋት ሌሎችን እስከ ማጥፋት ብዙ አይነት የሶሳይታል ችግር ውስጥ እስከ መግባት ላይ ይደርሳሉ እና በጣም አስቸጋሪ ጊዜ ላይ ነው ያለ ነው። ያለምም ሁኔታ እንደምታውቀው ነው ሀገራችን ላይ ያለው ነገር እዚህ ሆነ ቀንና ሌሊት እንቅልፍ እንኳን ሳንተኛ የምንከታተላቸው ብዙ ነገሮች ይኖራሉ። ያ ሁሉ ሰውን አይረብሽም ሊባል አይችልምና ከመቼውም ጊዜ በላይ የማህበረሰባችን መሰባሰብና መደጋገፍ አስፈላጊ ነው ብዬ አምናለሁ።
ዛሬ እዚህ የተገኘሁት ኢትዮካን ብሪጅ ዘ ጋፕ ሜንታል ሄልዝ ወርክሾፕ ያዘጋጃል። ለዚህ ድርጅት ቮለንተር እያደረኩኝ ነው ዛሬ እዚህው ምግቡ ቀርቧል፣ ሰው መጥቷል፣ ቡና እየተፈላ ነውና ሜንታል ሄልዝ በኮሚኒቲያችን ውስጥ በጣም እየበዛ ስለመጣ ለሰው አዌርነስ ለመፍጠርና ተባብረን ወገኖቻችን ወጣቶቹን በሜንታል ሄልዝ አዌርነስ ሰጥተን እንዲያውቁ አድርገን የተጎዱትንም ለመርዳት እንደዚህ አይነት ችግር ያለባቸውንም ሪሶርስ እንዳለ ለማሳየት ነው አሁን እዚህ የተገኘ ነው ማለት ነው። እኔ ቮለንተሪ እያረኩ ነው ለነሱ። እሺ በተለይ ከዚህ ከኮቪድ-19 በኋላ እንደዚህ አይነት ነገር በኢትዮጵያ ማህበረሰብ ብቻ ሳይሆን በመላው ካናዳ በመላው ዓለም የሜንታል ሄልዝ ችግር ተፈጥሯል። ሰው ተዘግቶ ስለከረመ ብዙ ነገር አለ፣ ብቻውን መሆን የሚያማክረው ሰው ስለሌለ እና በእኛ ማህበረሰቡም ይሄ ነገር አለና እንደ ካልቸር ግልጽ አንናገርም። እኛ እንዲህ አይነት ነገር ሲኖር ይደበቃል፣ ሰው ግልጽ አይናገርም። በኋላ መጨረሻ ከደረሰ በኋላ ነው ይሄ ነገር የሚወጣውና አሁን ግን ይሄ ነገር ምንም ችግር የለውም፣ ግልጽ ተነግሮ መድኃኒቱ መፍትሄው እንዲገኝ አብሮ መስራት ይሻላል ተብሎ ኢትዮካን ብሪጅ ዘ ጋፕ በጣም ትልቅ ስራ እየሰራ ነው። ዶክተር ቃልና ወይዘሮ ጸደይ የነሱ ድርጅት ነው እና በጣም ትልቅ ስራ እየሰሩ ነው ያለው። ሁላችንም ተባብረን ወገኖቻችንን እንርዳ፣ በሜንታል ሄልዝ የሚሰቃዩትን ማለት ነው። ማርች አሁን እኔ በየአመቱ ማርችና ሰመር ላይ ወጣቶችን ሜንቶር አደርጋለሁ የሪሰርች ላብ በማስጎብኘት የሃይ ስኩል ተማሪዎችን። አሁንም ማርች 17 አለን ፕሮግራም፣ ብዙ ልጆች ይመጣሉ ብዬ አስባለሁኝ እና በጣም ሰፋ ያለ ፕሮግራም ነው አሁን እየተደረገ ያለው። ዩኒቨርሲቲውም ሪኮግናይዝ አድርጎት ይሄንን ፕሮግራም በጣም የማበረታታት ነገር አለና ልጆቻችሁን ሃይ ስኩል የሆኑትን ኤክስፖዝ ማድረግ ወደ ዩኒቨርሲቲ እንዲመጡ የግድ ሪሰርች ወይም ሳይንስ እንዲማሩ ሳይሆን ሌላዎችንም ኮሚኒኬት አድርገው አግኝተው በምን መስመር እንደሚሄዱ ለማሳየት ነው ይሄን ፕሮግራም የምንሰራውና ልጆቻችሁን ላኩ ለማለት ነው። ፕሮግራሙ ሙሉ ቀን ነው። ጠዋት ከ9 ይጀምራል፣ 9 ሻርፕ ይጀምራል። ከዛ እስከ 4:30 ነው። የሙሉ ቀን ፕሮግራም ነው። ምሳቸውን ሁሉ ነገር ከቨር ይደረጋል። ብዙ ነገር ነው የሚሰራውና የአሁኑ ስፒከሮች ይመጣሉ፣ ተናጋሪዎች ገስትን አዘጋጅቻለሁ። እነሱም ያላቸውን ኤክስፒሪየንስ ለልጆቻችን ሼር ያደርጋሉ ማለት ነው። ልጆቹ የሃይ ስኩል ተማሪዎች ኦሬዲ የተመዘገበ ነው። አሁን ኦሬዲ ተመዝግቧል። 4 ስፖት አለኝ። ያልተመዘገበ ሰው እኔን ኮንታክት ማድረግ ይችላል። ታንኪዩ፣ አመሰግናለሁ።
እሺ፣ ስሜ መቅደስ እባላለሁኝ። የምኖረው እዚሁ ቶሮንቶ ኦንታሪዮ ውስጥ ነው። ዛሬ የሜንታል ሄልዝ ፕሮግራም የተካሄደው ፕሮግራም ላይ ምግብ ያዘጋጀሁት እኔ ነኝ። ብዙ ቮለንተሮች አብሮኛሉ። ብዙ ስራ አብረን የሰራ ነው። የዛሬ አመትም እዚሁ እኛንን የሰራ ነው። እንግዲህ በጣም ደስ ይላል። ብዙ ሰው ነው ያለው። በጣም ጥሩ ነገር እያካሄድን ነው። አመሰግናለሁ።
ጤና ይስጥልኝ። ረዴት ጌታሁን ዘነበ እባላለሁኝ። በዛሬው ቀን ኢትዮካን ብሪጅ ዘ ጋፕ በሜንታል ሄልዝ ዙሪያ በሚያደርጉት ወርክሾፕ ላይ ቮለንቲር እያደረኩ ነው። I'm so happy to be a part of this. ይሄ እኛ ኮሚኒቲ ውስጥ በግልጽ የማይወራ ኢሹ ነው ሜንታል ሄልዝ እና ኢትዮካን ብሪጅ ዘ ጋፕ ይሄንን ዌይ ፎርዋርድ ብለው ይሄንን ጋፕ አቮይድ ለማድረግ communication, this is like a way to create a platform to be open, to communicate እና እዚህ ላይ አብሬ አንድ አካል ሆኜ በመሳተፌ እጅግ በጣም ደስተኛ ነኝ። ይሄን እድል ስላገኘሁኝ አመሰግናለሁ።